We all have these big goals, these huge changes we want to make in our lives, and we usually think it takes some massive, heroic effort to get there. But what if the real secret to transformation isn't one giant leap? What if it's something way, way smaller? Well, according to James Clear's incredible book, Atomic Habits, real, lasting change doesn't come from one big action. It comes from the compound effect of hundreds of tiny little decisions.
So first things first, we've got to talk about something called the breakthrough myth. And you know this feeling. It's that frustration when you're putting in the work day after day and you're just not seeing the results you want. We're all kind of conditioned to look for that one big moment, that single event that's going to change everything.
This quote just perfectly nails the idea. Real change is like a stonecutter hammering a rock. He might hit it 100 times and see nothing, not even a crack. But then, on the 101st blow, the rock splits in two. Now, was it that last hit that did all the work? Of course not. It was the accumulation of all the pressure from every single blow that came before it.
And that's really the crucial point here. Our focus on a single breakthrough moment is a total myth. It actually blinds us to where the real power is, which is in the tiny, seemingly insignificant improvements we can make every single day. These are the atomic habits that build on each other, little by little.
Okay, so to really see this in action, let's look at one of the most stunning turnaround stories in the history of sports. And it all starts with, well, over 100 years of absolute, undeniable failure.
Let's talk about the British cycling team. For nearly its entire existence, this team was basically a joke on the world stage. I mean, their performance was so bad that, get this, some top bike companies flat out refused to sell them their equipment. They were afraid it would damage their brand if other pros saw the Brits using their gear. Ouch.
Just think about this for a second. For 110 years, not a single British cyclist had ever won the sport's biggest, most famous race, the Tour de France. Not one.
And their Olympic record? It was just as bad. In the entire century after 1908, they had managed to win a grand total of one single gold medal.
So let's just put that all together. 110 years, one Olympic gold medal, 0 Tour de France wins. This wasn't just a slump. This was a deeply rooted culture of not being good enough.
But then, in 2003, everything started to change. They hired a new performance director, a guy named Dave Brailsford. And he brought in a philosophy that was about to completely revolutionize not just the team, but the entire sport of cycling.
Brailsford's strategy was called the aggregation of marginal gains. Now, it sounds a little fancy, but the idea is actually brilliantly simple. If you break down every single thing that goes into riding a bike, and then improve each of those little things by just 1%, you'll get a massive increase in performance when you put it all back together.
And when I say they looked at everything, they looked at everything. They tested different massage gels for muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. They even figured out the perfect pillow and mattress for each individual athlete to optimize their sleep. They painted the inside of the team truck white. Why? So they could spot tiny specks of dust that might mess with the bike's mechanics. No detail was too small to be improved by 1%.
So what happens when you start adding up all these hundreds of little 1% improvements? Well, the results started coming in, and they were faster and way more dramatic than anyone could have possibly imagined. This is where you see the real magic of compound.
The results were just staggering. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the team won an insane 60% of the available gold medals. 4 years later in London, they set 9 Olympic and 7 world records. And the Tour de France, the race they hadn't won in over a century, a British rider won it 5 times in 6 years. Over a 10-year stretch, they won 178 world championships. It was one of the most successful runs in the history of cycling.
So what's so amazing here is that this wasn't that magical breakthrough moment we're all looking for. This was the stonecutter, right? Hammering the rock, blow after blow. This was the direct result of hundreds of tiny 1% improvements compounding on top of each other into something truly extraordinary.
So this brings us to the most important question of all. That's a great story, but how does this apply to us? How can we actually harness this power in our own lives?
Well, the key is to shift your focus. Stop focusing so much on goals and start focusing on your systems. A goal is the result you want, like win the Tour de France. A system is the process that leads to that result, like improve every aspect of cycling by 1%. And think about it. Winners and losers in any field often have the exact same goals. The goal isn't what makes the difference.
What separates them is their commitment to a better system. This is probably the most important sentence in the entire book. It's so powerful. It's not your big ambitions that determine if you succeed. It's the daily habits and routines you commit to. Your system is what makes sure you're making progress, even on the days you don't feel motivated.
So that leaves us with one final, powerful question. Forget about the massive, life-altering change for just a minute. Instead, just ask yourself this. What is one small, tiny thing that you can improve by just 1% today?